Hello everybody and welcome. This video is dedicated to all the young professionals, students, and junior analysts out there who have been tasked with creating a dashboard and you're not sure where to start. So one thing to say is that there's many software packages out there in which you could create a dashboard, but in this video we're going to focus on creating one in Microsoft Excel. Now, even within Microsoft Excel, there's multiple ways to come up with a dashboard, but what we're going to do in this video is just go over a very basic dashboard that we're going to create using pivot tables. So a couple of things that I do want to call out is I want to keep this video less than 10 minutes so that you have a reference point anytime you need to come back to this video if you need to create a dashboard once again, so that this is a quick reference point until you're more comfortable creating a dashboard. Second thing that I like to call out is that I'm using traditional corporate finance data. But not to worry, if you're using scientific data, marketing data, sales data, whatever your data set is, the concepts that we'll be covering in this video in order to create a dashboard is transferable no matter what kind of data set that you're using. Now, with all that being said, let's get right into it. So take a look below here. You could see my data, right? So I'm not going to go over the data that I have here. You have the benefit of pausing, fast forwarding, rewinding, right? So if you want to take a look at the data, maybe pause it quickly. But let's say, for example, my manager or my teacher, they're asking me to create a dashboard which is summarizing sales by segment, country, and product. So that would be the first three columns that you see here, right? So the first step in creating the dashboard, so step number one, is going to be creating our pivot table. So I'm going to go in here, insert pivot table, and the very first thing I'm going to put in is segment. I'm going to put in sales, right? I don't want pennies, so I'm going to come in here, number format, number, and I'm going to put 0 for decimals. Then I also want to see it highest to lowest, right? And then this is a nitpicky thing that I do, pivot table options, auto fit column widths on updates. I want to unselect that. The reason for that is because I want my pivot table to maintain its format even when I do updates on the pivot table. So that's the way of doing that. Now I'm going to go back into my data. For my second pivot table, I'm going to go insert, pivot table. Now I'm going to go existing worksheet, right? I'm going to select this icon here. I'm going to go back into sheet 3, go right beside my original pivot table, click OK, and now I'm going to bring in country. So now I have country, sales. Again, I'm going to sort largest to smallest, and again, I'm going to unselect this auto fit check mark, right? So that's pivot table number 2. For our pivot table number 3, an easier way of just reproducing a pivot table is simply copying and pasting it. So I'm going to copy and paste. Now your new pivot table that you just pasted, it's going to be identical to the one that you copied from. So we got to take country out of here and let's put in product, right? I'm going to increase the size here. This one I forgot to take out the pennies, so let me go and do that now. Number format, number. Decimal place is 0. You could fast forward as I'm doing this formatting here. Here again, all I'm doing is just sorting highest to lowest. I want to get rid of my decimals as well. Now for that auto fit selection, because we copied and pasted, it's already set to that, so I don't need to unselect anything there. Underneath that, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show a trend. So I'm going to go by month. I'm going to go month number and year. Let me go ahead and let me make these columns all the same width. I'll select 15. And for the year, we have 2013, 2014. So this is older data that I downloaded directly from Microsoft's website. So I went and I just got sample data. Doesn't matter that the data is old. It's still applicable to pretty much any year. I'm going to select the most recent year, which is 2014. And now that we're done setting up our pivot tables, we're done with our step 1. So now we can move on to our step 2, which is creating pivot charts. So charts is what's going to provide the illustration. So illustrations, they're going to show trends to the user, and it's going to allow the users of this dashboard to draw conclusions, right? So let's go ahead. I'm just going to push these, the pivot tables below. I do want to keep it on screen though, so let me delete a few rows. And now for each of these pivot tables, I'm going to create a different chart, right? So for the first pivot chart, I'm going to go with a pie chart, right? So pie chart is going to show by segment who has the biggest percentage of the business, right? I'm going to get rid of that. I could quickly customize this. Right? So now for the second pivot table, what I'm going to do, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to do a pivot chart. This time I'm going to use a column chart. So this is just summarizing revenue by country, right? And then for the third chart, it's by product, right? So for this one, I like to use a different pivot chart for each of these, right? Just to give you guys different examples. I'm going to use a bar chart here, which is very similar to a column chart. So again, it gives you product, the product and the corresponding revenue, right? Now, for the last one here on the bottom, the month-over-month trend, I'm going to use a trend line here, right? I'm going to put that up here. And then you could see on the bottom axis, it's giving you all the products, right? I don't want that. I want the month on the bottom axis, right? So I'm going to go here, select data, and I'm going to switch row column. And now you could see at the bottom here, you have period 1 to period 12. So that's step 2, which has been completed, right? Now, for step 3, and the final step is inserting the slicers. So slicers, what that's going to do for us, it's going to allow the end user of this dashboard to go in and look at whatever data, however they see fit, right? So for each of these 3, and remember at the beginning of this, we said that the manager or teacher is asking us by segment, country, and product, right? So those are the 3 slicers that we're going to add. To add a slicer, you're going to click on the pivot table. You're going to click on Insert Slicer. You're going to select Segment. Now you can see this slicer up here. You want to click on the slicer, go in here, Report Connections. You just want to make sure that it's connected to every pivot table in this sheet. I'm going to hit OK. So that's one slicer ready to go. And then I'm just going to do the exact same thing for the other 2 slicers. So insert slicer, country, report connections. I'm going to select every pivot table. So country is ready. And now for the final slicer, we're going to insert a slicer for product. So insert slicer, product, OK. We're going to go to report connections, and we're going to select every single pivot table. Right? Now, these slicers, you could go in here, and when I click on any of these, you're going to see that all the pivot tables and all the charts, they're going to update, right? So if I select government, you could see all the pivot tables and charts, they update. And you could use multiple slicers within this dashboard. So if I want to know government for France, for this one specific product, then it's just going to give us that, right? So you could get very granular, right? Now, these are essentially like filters. So if I want to unfilter, you just click this icon here, right? And then another thing to call out in the slicers, if you do want to select multiple within each slicer, you just come here, select this icon, turn it on for each, And now let's say I want to view government, right? But let's say I also want to view small business. And instead of just looking at France, let's say I want to look at France and the United States. And instead of just one product, let's say I want to look at these two products, right? I could go ahead and I could do that, right? So no one has ever told me this, but I'm pretty convinced that Microsoft, they called it a slicer because you could kind of slice and dice the data in any way that you see fit, right? So I'll go ahead here and I'll unselect all of that so that it's back to the original base. Now, one thing to call out here is that this dashboard, aesthetically, it's not very attractive, I would say, right? If I was going to hand this into my manager, teacher, or if this was going to become something that everyone was using within a corporation, of course, I would take my time. I would make it look more aesthetically pleasing. I would add a title. I would add some coloring, some formatting, but I'll let you do that. You take that back and you color it and you could format it as you see fit. For this video, what I really want to focus on is building the dashboard. And you could see here, to build a basic dashboard, it's actually very simple and very basic. So this would be a basic dashboard that you could create in Microsoft Excel. So if you made it to this far in the video, I do want to let you know that if you are a beginner in Microsoft Excel and you would like to accelerate your knowledge to become an advanced user of the software, I have the course for you. I have over 100 different lecture videos individually bookmarked so that you can learn at your own pace. So for example, if you wanted to learn about VLOOKUPs, I have a couple of videos on VLOOKUPs. If it's pivot tables that you'd like to know about, I have an entire chapter on pivot tables. So again, if you'd like to accelerate your knowledge and become an advanced user of Microsoft Excel, my course is the course for you. The link is in the comment section below. Also, if you like this file that I showed you here in this video, I have the file also available in the comments section below. So you could take it back and you could hold onto it for your reference to help you build your own dashboard in Microsoft Excel. So that pretty much concludes the video, guys. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. And as always, keep fit and have fun.